I have worked for some crap leaders in the past, and I have been a crap leader in the past, and I will probably be accused of being a crap leader at some point again in the future. Here's the deal. We've all experienced it. We've experienced the situations where we feel like we're not leading the best way that we can. We've experienced those situations where we're working for people who are in leadership roles where we wonder how the heck they got into that role. What kind of pictures do they have? What information do they have? Leadership is hard. One of the biggest challenges with leadership is understanding what your definition is of the word. I have a simple personal definition. Leadership is how we move forward. I firmly believe my attitude and belief around leadership is that leadership starts with self. Leaders build leaders, and leadership is an act of service. So those are some of my beliefs on leadership. Now we're going to get into what is probably going to be one of the longest learn, think, acts that we've done in a while. We're going to talk about leading up, leading across, and leading down. And I'm not a fan of using the word leading down, but I've got an old Xbox controller, and I thought, you know what, this is something that a number of people are kind of familiar with. We understand what it's like to lead teams, our teams. We know what it's like to lead across multiple teams. We've been in those instances where we have to work with leaders who are functionally running another part of the business. And we know what it's like to communicate up, lead up. And everybody in every role that you're in has someone that they're reporting something to. The CEO might be reporting to a board. Inside your household, you're reporting up to the people who you're in that household with. It's a little bit of a stretch, but we all have somebody that we're reporting something to. Let's get into it. Well, what's it like when you're leading up? This is one of those things that becomes a really big challenge, especially if you're working with a leader who is a new leader inside an organization. The first thing I want to understand when I'm leading up is, what is that leader's experience? What have they done? Where did they come from? What's their view of the world? How do they think about their job? What are the things that they're concerned with? How are they measured? What do they need to report on? What are some of the obstacles that they run into? If you've noticed, I'm not making assumptions. I'm kind of assuming the types of questions I want to ask, but I want to gather information about them, not judge how or why they do the work that they do or they take the approach. If I understand them at a personal level, and you can use a tool like the 4 ways of seeing, and we've talked about it on Learn, Think, Act before, you can use these tools to get an understanding of kind of who they are. What do they care about? Why do they care about those things? What are their aspirations? What do they want to achieve? So when leading up, let's make sure that we understand the context of the person that's in that role and understand who they're leading up to and who they're also leading across to. So let's understand the customer better than they understand themselves. And in this context, it's an internal customer. When leading up, let's make sure we have context. One of the mistakes that I've typically made in the past when leading up is failure to communicate effectively, failure to communicate with clarity. If I understand what's important to the person who I'm leading up to, I know what they're interested in, I know how they like to communicate, I know what kind of information they're looking for, I know what some of the assumptions are that they make, then I can communicate more effectively. And I can use a tool like the effective communication tool, who the person I'm leading up to, what are their objectives, what are my objectives, and what are our desired next steps? What's the thing that I want to have happen? So this gets into what, kind of so what, and now what. We can use these communication tools to help improve leading up. So if I know the person, I know the things that are important, I know what I need to communicate, my objectives, I can put myself into a better position where I can communicate those things effectively. I'm one of those leaders who I communicate to my team and I let them know that email is where things go to die. Text message is the best way to get a hold of me, or Slack if we happen to be in the same Slack channel. And a number of you are probably in some of those same Slack channels, but text message, Slack, picking up the phone, those are really good ways to get a hold of me. Sending an email, not the best way to communicate with me. Why? Because I've got a lot of email that kind of come through. Now that's a me issue, but I also communicate with others so that people know. Sometimes you're going to just deal with a crap leader, a leader who is well beyond their skis and well beyond their capabilities. Do what you can do to help them. How can you help them? How can you help them with communication? How can you help them take some things off of their plate? Maybe one of the struggles that they have is they have a really hard time delegating. And the reason that they have a hard time delegating is because they have this need to control things. What are some of the things that you can put in place to help them build confidence and feel like they don't need to control or have their finger on everything? Sometimes those control issues, and I'm speaking from experience, are driven by insecurity. When I've gotten into situations where I felt like I had to control something, it was typically because I was insecure about what was happening in that situation. That insecurity could be a number of different things. It could be insecurity around my ability to communicate it effectively. It could be insecurity around me not being the one who is going to get credit for the thing. It could be a number of different things. Now, I'm 50 some odd years old. It's taken me a long time to get this far. That leader that you're working with, it might take them a long time to get that far. And here's where you've got to make some choices. You've got to say, am I willing to do those things? Am I willing to do that work? What work am I willing to do? Because what you might find out is you're not the right fit for them. And in that case, you've got to lead yourself and exit. It's going to be hard and it sucks, but sometimes you've got to make those decisions. Remember that leadership wheel: problem solving, decision making, goal setting and execution, design, communication. Those are the 5 core skills of a leader. Apply those skills in this context when leading up. Lead up with clarity, lead up with communication, validate the things that you understand. Go do your discovery, trust, but verify as you go through that information. Now let's talk about leading across. If you're still with me, thank you. Leading across, same kind of thing. I've got multiple people that I need to do their job in order for me to be able to do my job, for my team to be able to do my job. One of the biggest mistakes revenue leaders make, and I've made this in the past, is we try to keep things kind of in this black box. We organize it and we don't want to provide exposure to all of the good, bad, ugly type things. Actually, we probably provide a lot of the good stuff out there, but we don't provide all the kind of stuff, the really, the tight stuff that we're struggling with. Well, remember, as a leader inside the business, your other leaders, your leader peers on the leadership team have those same things happening. Now, I understand inside an organization where it's dog eat dog or whatever kind of phrase you want to use, there's some politics that come into play. And you want to be really careful about what you share, specifically around some of those insecurities and who you share those things with, because some people are just assholes. I understand it. I've been an asshole in the past. Actually, I think I'm a little bit better now, but there are ways that information can be misused and mismanaged as everybody is vying for different positions, dealing with all that crap. Hopefully you're in an organization where the leadership team works well together. They gel well together. They know that everybody who's in the role that they're in deeply cares about the work that they're doing and wants to be successful. We have leading up, maybe this is the CEO, and then we have multiple people across the business. What happens when we start to understand what's important to each of these people? Same kind of questions. What do they care about? How are they measured? What are they stressed out about? Where's their risk? What's getting in the way of their success? If we can empathize with the people inside each of those roles, we can lead better across the team. We can move forward because ultimately, if we're all still in the same organization, we should roll into the same objective, which is driving the business forward, growing the business, meeting customer demands, not losing customers, all of those kind of things, reducing risk inside our business, increasing opportunity for growth. We should all be aligned. And what I want to know is, what do those people care about? What gets them stressed out? The other thing I want to understand is, how can I help them? How can my team help them be more successful? What are some of the things that my team is doing that gets in the way? One of the things that will happen in like sales and finance relationships is this kind of adversarial relationship that will happen. Some people are wondering about like terms that end up getting delivered to a customer, or this could be like payment terms, getting cash from customers, expenses that are going crazy. Like there's just the amount of money that people get paid in commission. All of those things can be really, really tough to work through, especially if there are assumptions made on either side. It took me a while to get this, but one of the best relationships I've had in many of the organizations that I've worked with since launching the business, and in relationships before launching the business, were with the people on the finance side. When you start to realize they've got a role that they need to play inside the business, and if you understand what's important to them, you can actually align the things that you're working on to align with theirs and work together to achieve ultimately the same result, which is, let's grow in a way that's profitable. Let's improve our our ability to forecast. The reason why forecasting is so important inside businesses is because if I can forecast accurately, then the finance team knows where and when they can start to take more risks. If I'm unable to forecast, even like I go below the forecast and we achieve well more than what we thought we were going to, or if I forecast too high and we come in way below, both of those create risk inside the organization. And that CFO cares about risk. What do the people inside those roles care about? So we've got up, we've got left and right across. And then let's hit that other piece. Let's talk about our team. What do they care about? What do they want to achieve? What are they trying to accomplish? Let's go in and ask these questions. Now, if you're taking over a new team, it's important for you to go out there and figure this stuff out. If you're going through the hiring process and adding people to your team, it's important for you to figure it out. If you understand what the needs are, wants, needs, desires, expectations of people on your team, you're going to be able to communicate more effectively with them. How do they like to communicate? What is their experience? What do they want to do next? How can you create opportunities? This is one of the ways that you can go across a team really, really well. What would they like to do to test inside some of these other groups? Can we add some shadowing? Can we have them be on site with people? Can they get exposure into what's happening in some of those other teams? If we understand the up, we understand the side to side, and we understand our team, we will be in a better position to lead effectively. Let's talk about the ugly stuff. Well, sometimes the people that are in each of those roles just don't give a shit. And actually, sometimes when you look in the mirror, you might realize you don't give a shit. You don't give a shit about what's happening in those other teams. You don't give a shit what's happening up here. You're focused on yourself. You're selfish. If that's the case, you're either the wrong fit for the organization that you're a part of, or they're the wrong fit for you. And now you get into a situation where you have to make some decisions. You might need to make the decision, you know what, I'm okay with it. I only have to work with that leader in very, very small pieces, and they don't actually control the things that are in my control. When you're in a revenue role, this becomes really easy because those leaders are not always out there in the field when you're meeting with customers. You can express that leadership capability out there with customers. You can stay in those areas of focus, do the things that you need to do to achieve the results that you're looking for. I hope this helps. Leadership is hard on both sides. It's hard to lead another human. It is hard to be led by another human. Many times the reason it's hard to be led or to lead is because of the assumptions that we make. When you're communicating with others, remember that there are things that are said. There are things that are said, what I say, there are things that are heard, and then there are things that are remembered. Very rarely are all three of those things the same. These days, with everything being recorded, you could go back to the tape and see what was said. You can figure out why were those things not heard? Why were they not remembered? Where's the confusion come from? If you are looking for leadership, start with a mirror. Leadership starts with self. Leaders build leaders. And leadership is an act of service. If you're struggling with one of these things and you want to talk with someone about it, you know how to get a hold of me. If you have questions, please let me know. If you know somebody that this might help, please share it with them. And if you've got some feedback for me around something I missed that you want me to go deeper into, please let me know that as well. Thank you.